to One-on-One with Expert Flyer. I'm your host, Lisa Caslin, and today we're talking about bleisure travel. And if you have never heard of that term, our expert today is the author of a blog called Road Warriorette, and Sarah specializes in tips and insight for frequent flyers, business travelers, and she's going to cast some light on this new trend. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. So how do you define bleisure travel?
So I think that bleisure travel can take on a number of different formats. It's really any time that you add something fun to a business trip. So that can be going somewhere fun beforehand, going somewhere fun after, taking a few hours in between meetings to go do something fun for yourself, or maybe bringing family or loved ones along with you on an actual work trip. That totally counts too.
Okay. So, I know there's been a flurry of articles over the past, I don't know, maybe 6 months or so about, this being a trend. But haven't people been doing this for a long time?
Oh yeah, people have been doing bleisure trips for a long time, but it is now, I would say just in the past few years, it's really started to become a term and take on a life of its own. It's definitely not a new trend, but there's a lot of reasons why someone would want to take a bleisure trip, whether it's to save money, to spend time with their family when they would other be away, to take their friends or loved ones to go see cool places that they wouldn't be able to otherwise. Mm-hmm. And something I've noticed, I think, that kind of coincides with my own experience as a business traveler and then also as someone who takes bleisure trips, and are making up more and more of the share of business travelers. Mm-hmm. They are looking for ways to balance being gone for a long time with continuing to spend time with their family and other loved ones. Mm-hmm. And, bleisure travel is a great way to do that. Now, of course, not that guys weren't doing that before, but most of the questions I get on how to successfully do bleisure travel come from women.
Ah, very good. And, look, at the very least, you're saving, if you're flying, you're saving one person's airfare, which could be a significant cost savings.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I've read also that millennials seem to be really jumping on this bandwagon in a real big way. Do you see that too? That younger professionals are really gravitating towards this?
I think yes, definitely millennials are gravitating towards travel. Who doesn't want to go see really cool places with people they enjoy spending time with and save money while doing it? That sounds pretty perfect. And so, especially as someone, when I first started in my role, hard to believe, over 10 years ago, when I first started traveling for work, I was in my mid-20s. I didn't have a lot of money. And so one way that my husband and I were able to actually see places together was to combine trips. One time I had some business to do in Idaho. And so afterwards, he met me in Napa, because I was already most of the way there. And we had this amazing trip to Napa while saving a huge portion of the airfare. So, yes, I completely get why millennials would want to jump in on that.
Okay, so for somebody who's thinking about do you have, based on your personal experience, and we should tell everybody that you are currently a business professional who travels, so you've walked the mile in other shoes, so to speak.
Definitely.
What are some of your favorite do's and don'ts?
So I think one of the most important things to stress for me is to make sure that you are following all of your company's travel and expense guidelines. Mm-hmm. Yes, traveling is awesome, and being able to bring loved ones on a trip is awesome, and being able to combine all of that is great, but this is not something that you want to get fired over. So if there's ever anything that you are not sure about, check with your company first, because you want to make sure that you're not violating any guidelines. That's the number one thing. Beyond that, I would also say that it's really important, especially if you are taking loved ones with you during the actual working part of your trip, it's really important to have clear boundaries. So when my son was born, bleisure trips all the time before he was born. When my son was born, we tried to continue on with that trend, but it was really hard for me because it was hard to leave the hotel room when they were both in there. It was hard for me to go out at night and entertain clients when I felt like I should be helping my husband with our baby in the hotel room. And so we don't do that anymore. Now they only meet me before or after. They don't come with me while I'm actually working because it just splits my focus.
Yeah, it's stressful and you feel conflicted, right?
Yes, absolutely. And so it's the way that I have the most fun is if completely on my work while I'm on site, and then they meet me. And that's also best for my husband and my kids too, because what they can be at home with all of their gear routine and then meet me, and we're all a team having fun together.
Yeah, that's awesome. So anything in terms of, domestic versus international, anything specific there that you might want to share with us?
So if you are traveling internationally and you are combining it with a bleisure trip, just make sure that you remember your passport. Fortunately, speaking from personal experience here, I was several years ago, I was traveling internationally, but before I left for Central America, I stopped in South Texas for a couple of days to spend time with my grandmother for her 85th birthday. And I had a great time until I realized that I had forgotten my passport because my mind was so focused on my first family trip that I forgot about, that whole international leg. Luckily, my husband was able to overnight it to me and it all worked out. But when you're doing all, but especially international, there's so much planning that needs to happen. So if you've got the time or the mental energy to do all of that planning and you can do an international bleisure travel, I say go for it. I think that is amazing. Unfortunately, I have a 3-year-old and twin babies and I don't have the mind for that right now. And so someday it'll happen, but right now I have to stick to domestic.
Yeah. Okay, we get that. All right. So, a lot of folks who are regularly traveling for business are also participants in, maybe a variety of loyalty programs, whether it's with the airlines or hotels or both, and maybe even a credit card that they're using to rack up some points with. Do you have any tips in that regard?
Oh, definitely. Okay. I mean, you can use points to pay for virtually anything from the hotel to the airfare to your car. You can get gift cards for spending while you're there, gift cards to restaurants. I mean, you can have points pay for virtually anything. And if you're planning far enough out, you can be really strategic about the gathering of points and make sure that either you're funneling them to specific programs where you need them, or if you've really got enough time, search out credit cards that have really large bonuses. And I don't specialize in points and miles. I love them and I appreciate them, but there are so many blogs out there that will tell you exactly which credit card to get the most points for your buck. And I highly recommend looking into those so that you can get a huge bonus that could pay for a large portion of your trip.
Okay, fair enough.
And just one more thing, remember that you do get all of your status perks when you're on the personal portion of your trip that you get with your business portion. So like I'm gold with Hilton and they'll upgrade me if one's available, regardless of whether I'm paying with points or with my credit card.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so before we let you go, is there anything that you want to share that we may not have asked you that you think is important to know?
Besides saying again that make sure you're not violating any rules, of course. I think that combining a work trip and a personal trip, if you can be smart about it, is a really great way to spend time with your loved ones, to not feel so alone on a business trip, which can be a big thing. And then also to have a really good time. And if you can be smart about it, I say go for it, because my husband and I have seen some really cool places, done some really fun stuff, and saved a bunch of money while doing it.
Love that. Love that. All right. So if folks want to follow you and read your blog, how do they do that? What's your blog?
So my blog is just roadwarriorette.com. I am at Road Warriorette on Twitter, and I'm also Road Warriorette on Facebook. So a number of ways to keep in touch.
Beautiful. All right. Listen, we want to have you back. Thank you so much for your time, Sarah.
Thank you.
Okay. Take care.